Sergeant James Cooper stepped off the transport shuttle onto Kepler Station, his boots making a sharp clicking sound against the polished metal floor. The hangar bay was enormous, filled with the strange humming energy of dozens of alien species moving about their business. James wasn't particularly tall or muscular by human standards. Back on Earth he was just another soldier, average in every way. But here, surrounded by creatures from across the galaxy, he felt like a curiosity on display. A massive insect-like creature approached him. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, with a body that resembled a praying mantis scaled up to nightmarish proportions. Its compound eyes reflected James's image 1,000 times over, and its blade-like forearms clicked together as it moved. "Sergeant Cooper?" The voice came through the translator implant behind James's ear, converting alien sounds into clear English. "I am Commander Vex. Welcome to the Galactic Coalition Military Training Facility." James straightened and saluted, though the gesture seemed to confuse the alien commander. "Thank you, sir. Happy to be here." "You are our first human participant," Vex said, his mandibles working in what might have been curiosity. "Your species' application to join the coalition has generated much discussion." That was putting it mildly. During his 3-week journey from Earth, James had read the files. Earth had been classified as a Class 12 death world. The rating placed it among the most hostile environments in known space that could still produce intelligent life. Many coalition members had voted against accepting humans, fearing that anything surviving such a world would be too violent, too unpredictable for civilized society. "I'll do my best to represent humanity well, Commander," James said. Vex gestured with one sharp forearm toward an interior corridor. "Come. I will introduce you to your training squad." The mess hall was vast enough to accommodate beings of wildly different sizes. Some aliens were barely a meter tall, while others towered at nearly 10 meters. Dozens of eyes, stalks, sensors and other organs turned to watch as James entered. Conversations died in rippling waves of silence. "Everyone," Vex announced, his voice carrying effortlessly through the space, "this is Sergeant James Cooper of Earth. He will train with us for the next standard cycle." A few uncertain greetings echoed back. James raised his hand in a friendly wave, trying not to look as nervous as he felt. Vex led him to a nearby table where 3 aliens waited. "This is Lieutenant Anne of the Selkeen." The creature before him was vaguely humanoid but covered in shimmering scales that shifted from blue to green depending on the light. She had 4 arms and 4 legs, each bending at angles that made James's own joints ache just looking at them. When she smiled, rows of needle-sharp teeth became visible. "Pleased to meet you, human," and said, her voice surprisingly musical. "I have read about your species. Very interesting biology." "Likewise," James replied, meaning it. "This is Trooper Ben of the Gorvith." Ben was a mountain of gray rock-like flesh. He stood 4 meters tall and nearly as wide, with natural armor plating studded across his hide. Despite his intimidating appearance, his small eyes held a gentle warmth. "Hello, small one," Ben rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. "Do not worry. I will make sure nothing harms you during training." James suppressed a smile at the protective tone. "Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that." And finally, Specialist Grace of the Thrall. Grace was perhaps the strangest of all, a jellyfish-like creature floating inside a transparent environmental suit filled with purple mist. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across her body in hypnotic waves. "Greetings, Deathworlder," Grace said through a speaker on her suit. "Your reputation comes before you." "Does it?" James asked. "Your planet's classification has sparked debate," Commander Vex explained. "Many believe nothing from a Class 12 world could be suitable for military service. Too dangerous. Too unstable." "And what do you believe, Commander?" Vex's mandibles clicked together. "I believe we shall discover the truth. Your personnel file mentions basic self-protection training. All Coalition members undergo combat assessment. You will have your chance to demonstrate soon." Over the following days, James settled into the routine. The training was rigorous but manageable: physical conditioning, tactical exercises, equipment drills. What surprised him most was how carefully everyone treated him. Ben constantly hovered nearby during strength training, ready to help the fragile human. And offered to carry his equipment, worried that someone from a high-gravity world wouldn't be used to physical exertion. Even Grace tried to assist despite having no physical hands. "I'm fine really," James insisted for the 20th time as Ben reached for his pack during a training march. "But the weight." "Ben, I carried twice this much back home. Earth's gravity is 1.4 times standard. This actually feels light to me." Ben pulled back his massive hand, looking confused. "Oh, I did not know." Lieutenant and slithered up beside them on her 4 legs. "Is it true? The reports say Deathworlders have enhanced physical abilities." "Not enhanced. Just adapted to our environment. It happens our environment is pretty harsh." "Harsh?" Grace floated past, her speaker crackling. "Your atmosphere contains free oxygen, a corrosive poison to most life. Your moon causes tidal forces strong enough to deform your planet's surface. Your native predators hunt in coordinated packs and can mass several tons." "Well, yeah, when you list it like that it sounds bad," James admitted. "And yet you evolved there. Thrived there." Anne's eyes gleamed with scientific fascination. "What does that make you?" James thought about it. "Lucky, I guess. Or stubborn." That evening, the squad gathered for what Vex called cultural exchange time. Each species shared aspects of their home world and military traditions. Ben demonstrated the Gorvith defensive stance, low and solid, emphasizing their natural armor, and showed the flowing movements of Selkine combat techniques. Grace projected holographic displays of Thrall tactical coordination through light signals. "What about humans?" Commander Vex asked. "What combat methods does Earth use?" James considered his answer. "We have many. Humans have been fighting a long time. Different cultures develop different styles. But there must be a basic system? Something all human soldiers learn? Most of us learn self-defense. Usually as kids." The room went quiet. Another insectoid alien spoke up. "You train your children for combat?" "Not combat exactly. Just basic self-protection. You know, in case someone tries to hurt you." The aliens exchanged glances James couldn't interpret. "Fascinating," Vex murmured. "Perhaps you could demonstrate during next week's exhibition? Each squad presents their capabilities. It would be educational." James shrugged. "Sure. Though I should warn you, what I know is pretty basic. Nothing special." "Nevertheless, we would be honored." As everyone dispersed, James noticed the others whispering and glancing his way. He wondered if agreeing to demonstrate had been a mistake. What these aliens didn't understand, what they couldn't understand yet, was what basic meant on a death world. They were thinking of gentle defensive postures and careful movements. They had no idea what was coming. The week passed quickly. James trained alongside his squad, learning coalition tactics and procedures. He performed adequately in every exercise, not spectacular, not terrible. Just average. The others began to relax around him, treating him less like a fragile exotic creature and more like an equal teammate. Ben stopped trying to carry his equipment and ceased offering constant assistance. Grace no longer hovered nearby during physical training, worried he might collapse. They were beginning to see him as just another soldier. James wondered if that would change after today. Exhibition day arrived with clear skies visible through the station's massive viewport windows. The main training hall had been transformed into a demonstration arena. Observation platforms ringed the space, filled with aliens from dozens of different species. James counted at least 100 beings present, maybe more. Their various eyes, sensors, and visual organs all focused on the arena floor. Commander Vex stood at the center, his voice amplified through the hall speaker system. "Welcome to this cycle's Combat Doctrine exhibition. Today, Squad 7 will present their capabilities, including a demonstration from our human member." Polite sounds echoed through the hall, clicks, hums, whistles, and warbles. The alien equivalent of applause. Ben went first. The massive Gorvith positioned himself in the center of the arena and demonstrated his species' defensive formation. Training drones fired simulated weapons at him from multiple angles. Ben simply stood there, his rock-like hide absorbing impacts that would have shattered concrete. The audience murmured appreciatively at his immovable strength. And followed next. She moved through a complex series of Selkine grappling techniques, her 4 arms working in mesmerizing coordination. She moved like water, flowing from one position to another with liquid grace. Several aliens in the audience took notes on their various recording devices. Grace coordinated a tactical display with 3 other Thrall. Their bioluminescence created a silent communication network, flashing patterns that allowed them to move in perfect synchronization. They executed a simulated ambush with flawless timing. The watching crowd clicked and hummed with approval. Then Commander Vex's voice rang out again. "And now, Sergeant James Cooper will demonstrate Earth self-defense techniques." James walked to the center of the arena. He wore standard coalition training attire, lightweight, flexible, unmarked. Nothing special. He bowed slightly out of habit, a gesture from his karate training as a child. As Commander Vex mentioned, I'll be showing basic human self-defense, James began, keeping his voice calm and steady. This is what most humans learn as children, usually starting around age 10 or so. It's nothing fancy, just simple techniques for protecting yourself if someone attacks you. Confused whispers rippled through the audience. Children? 10 years old? The aliens looked at each other uncertainly. I'd like a volunteer to help demonstrate, James continued. Don't worry, these techniques are designed to be safe. Nobody will get hurt. The aliens hesitated. They glanced at each other, uncertain. Finally, Lieutenant Anne slithered forward on her forelegs, her scales shimmering with confidence. I will assist, Sergeant Cooper, she announced. I am confident I can withstand human juvenile training methods. Clicking laughter came from the Vexarii section of the observation platform. Several aliens made sounds that the translators interpreted as amusement. The idea of a trained coalition officer being challenged by children's exercises seemed absurd to them. James smiled politely. Thanks, Anne. Just try to grab me, a standard restraint hold. Nothing complicated. Anne's forearms flexed as she prepared herself. She was fast, much faster than James had expected during their previous training sessions. Her cell-keen biology allowed her to strike from multiple angles simultaneously. Her reach was easily twice his, and her forearms gave her options he simply didn't have. She moved forward confidently, then lunged. All four arms extended toward him, ready to capture and immobilize the smaller human. James sidestepped smoothly. His hands caught one of Anne's extended arms, redirecting her forward momentum. He executed a simple Tai Otoshi, a basic judo throw he had learned at age 12 in an after-school program. Anne's greater mass actually worked against her. Her own forward force carried her past James's pivot point. The 7-foot alien lieutenant flipped through the air and landed flat on her back on the padded mat. The impact made a resounding thump that echoed through the suddenly silent hall. And lay there, all four arms splayed out, her scaled face expressing pure shock. Her eyes were wide, her mouth hanging open. The training hall went completely silent. 100 aliens stared in disbelief. What? And finally managed to say, How did you? James offered her his hand, looking genuinely concerned. Sorry, I should have warned you. Humans have pretty quick reflexes. Our planet has lots of predators and dangerous animals, so we evolved to react fast. Are you okay? Did I hurt you? And took his hand with just one of hers, being very careful now. She let him help her to her feet, still looking dazed. I am undamaged. But you moved so quickly. That was quick. James looked genuinely confused. That was normal speed for me. Actually, I was trying to go slow so I wouldn't startle anyone. Commander Vex's mandibles began clacking together rapidly, a sign of agitation that James had learned to recognize. Sergeant Cooper. You just disabled a trained coalition officer in less than 2 seconds using what you describe as a basic technique. Well, yes, sir. And telegraphed her attack. She extended all four arms at once, which committed her completely to the forward movement. Basic judo principle. Use your opponent's force and momentum against them. Children learn this stuff in community centers and school programs back home. It's pretty common knowledge. The silence stretched longer. James could feel dozens of alien eyes studying him with new intensity. The atmosphere in the hall had changed completely. What had been casual interest was now focused attention tinged with something else. Concern? Fear? Respect? James couldn't quite tell. Then Ben's deep, rumbling voice broke the silence. I wish to try. The massive Gorvith stepped forward into the arena. At 4 meters tall and massing at least 3 times what James did, he looked like a mobile fortress. His rock-like hide had withstood simulated artillery strikes just minutes ago. Ben, are you sure? James asked carefully. I really don't want to hurt anyone. I am Gorvith, Ben replied, his small eyes determined. Our hide is nearly impenetrable. Our strength is legendary. I wish to understand how a smaller opponent could possibly threaten one such as me. He moved into position. Please, James. Show me. James nodded slowly, realizing there was no backing out now. All right. Come at me like you would in a real fight. Don't hold back. Ben charged. Despite his enormous size, he moved with surprising speed, closing the distance in 3 massive strides. His huge hands reached down, each one large enough to palm James's entire torso. He was fast, strong, and confident. James dropped low, shooting in beneath Ben's guard before those massive hands could close. He grabbed one of Ben's tree trunk legs, disrupted his balance with precise timing, and applied a basic wrestling takedown combined with strategic pressure on the knee joint. The giant Gorvatha's knee bent at an angle it wasn't designed to bend. Not far enough to cause actual damage, but far enough to send immediate pain signals screaming through his nervous system. Ben roared, a sound like an avalanche, and slapped the mat 3 times with his massive hand. The universal signal for submission. James released immediately and backed away, hands up. You okay, Ben? The Gorvath sat on the mat, rubbing his knee, his expression one of complete bewilderment. You found the weak point. The joint. How did you know where to apply pressure? Anatomy, James explained simply, offering Ben a hand up. It was more symbolic than helpful given their size difference, but Ben appreciated the gesture. Joints are vulnerable points on most living organisms, regardless of how tough the exterior is. Humans learn to identify and exploit weak points because when you're fighting something bigger than you, which on Earth is almost everything, you need every advantage you can get. Ben accepted the hand and pulled himself up, still looking stunned. Fighting things bigger than yourself is common on your world? Before we developed advanced weapons, yeah. Humans had to deal with bears, large cats, wolves, wild boars. Pack hunters, ambush predators, animals that outweighed us and had natural weapons like claws and fangs and tusks. James shrugged like it was the most normal thing in the universe. So we got really good at fighting smart instead of fighting strong. The hall remained silent. Then Grace floated forward, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing rapidly in agitation. But surely these techniques only work because we are not trained to fight Deathworlders, she said, her voice crackling through her suit speakers. What about an opponent with truly superior speed? My species, the Threll, have the fastest reaction times in the entire coalition. Commander Vex's antennae twitched nervously. Grace, I do not think that is. I wish to try, Grace insisted firmly. Sergeant Cooper, please attempt to strike me. James looked uncertain. The last thing he wanted was to hurt anyone, especially during what was supposed to be a friendly demonstration. Grace, I really don't think this is a good idea. I don't want anyone getting injured. You cannot injure me, Grace replied confidently. Her jellyfish-like form pulsed behind the transparent environmental suit. I am protected by this suit's defensive field. It is designed to withstand significant impact. Please, I insist. Attempt to strike me. James sighed. This was getting out of hand, but refusing now might make it seem like he was hiding something or afraid. All right. Basic boxing defense. I'm coming at you. He moved forward with a simple jab. Nothing fancy, just a straight punch like the thousands he had thrown in the gym back home. It was a textbook movement from his high school boxing club. Grace's suit darted sideways with incredible speed. Her Threll reflexes were genuinely impressive, allowing her to track the movement and evade with milliseconds to spare. She moved like lightning. But James's other hand was already there. The cross-punch caught Grace's suit dead center before she could react. It wasn't hard enough to breach the protective field, but it was enough to send her spinning through the air like a leaf caught in a storm. She tumbled end over end, completely out of control, before finally stabilizing her flight with emergency thrusters. There was a second strike. Grace's voice came out in a shocked squeak through her speakers. You attacked twice in the same span of time as a single attack. How is that possible? Jab cross combination, James said apologetically, genuinely feeling bad. Sorry, it's kind of automatic. When you throw a jab, you're already setting up the cross. It's muscle memory. They teach it together as one movement in basic boxing. The training hall erupted. Aliens began talking all at once, their various sounds creating a cacophony of clicks, hums, warbles, and whistles. James could see shock and disbelief on every face, or facial equivalent, in the room. Again, shouted a voice from the observation platform. I wish to try. A heavily armored alien James didn't recognize stepped into the arena. His species had thick, overlapping plates like natural battle armor. I am Trooper Richard of the Krell, the alien announced. Our armor has evolved over millions of years. Strike me with your full force. James hesitated, but Commander Vex nodded permission. Very well. Brace yourself, Richard. James moved in and delivered a palm strike to a gap between the armor plates. Richard's eyes went wide and he staggered backward, gasping for air. Pressure point, James explained. Every body has them. Places where nerves cluster close to the surface. You learn to find them. I wish to try. Another alien stepped forward. And I. Me as well. Over the next hour, James demonstrated technique after technique. A flexible alien species called the Yentl, known for their jointless limbs, tapped out to an arm bar. Another Gorvith, even larger than Ben, went flying from a simple hip throw. A snake-like alien found itself in a chokehold it couldn't escape. An alien with 6 legs discovered that more limbs just meant more leverage points for a skilled grappler. Every single alien who volunteered ended up on the mat, shocked and humbled. These were trained coalition warriors, some with decades of experience, and a human using basic techniques was handling them like children. Finally, Commander Vex himself stepped into the arena. The massive insect straightened to his full height, his blade-like forearms gleaming under the lights. "Sergeant Cooper," Vex said formally. "I am Vexarii. We are ambush predators, faster than the Threll, stronger than the Selkeen, with natural weapons honed by evolution. Show me this basic defense against true speed and natural weaponry." James bowed respectfully, his expression serious. "Commander, I really don't think this is appropriate." "That is an order, Sergeant." The hall went silent. Everyone watched as the human and the insectoid commander faced each other. Vex struck like lightning. His blade arms moved in blurs, cutting the air with whistling sounds. He was genuinely fast, faster than anything James had fought before. The attack came from multiple angles simultaneously, a killing technique refined over evolutionary ages. James didn't try to match his speed. He didn't need to. He read Vex's body mechanics, the slight shift of weight, the angle of his thorax, the positioning of his legs. He predicted the attack pattern and stepped inside Vex's guard, moving to where those blade arms couldn't reach full extension. One hand deflected a blade arm at the joint. The other struck, a controlled palm strike to Vex's thorax, right where the breathing spiracles were located. Commander Vex staggered backward, his breath rasping through his spiracles in harsh gasps. He caught himself on his legs, mandibles clicking in what might have been pain or shock or both. "How?" Vex managed to say between breaths. "You are slower than me. I saw your movements. You should not have been able to counter." James helped steady the commander, making sure he was all right. "Speed isn't everything, sir. I've been fighting humans my whole life. And humans are the most dangerous thing on Earth, the apex predator. When you evolve fighting your own species, apex predators fighting apex predators, you learn something important." "What is that?" Vex asked, his voice still strained. "You learn to predict, not just react. You learn to read body language, anticipate intentions, exploit weaknesses. Because if you don't, you die." James paused. "Every human combat system is designed around fighting other humans. We've spent thousands of years figuring out how to hurt ourselves most efficiently." The words hung in the air. The full weight of what James was saying slowly settled over the assembled aliens. Ben spoke in a hushed, rumbling voice. "Your greatest threat has always been your own kind." "Yes," James said simply. "We're pack hunters who learned to hunt other pack hunters. Pursuit predators who chased other pursuit predators. Tool users who fought other tool users. For most of human history, the most dangerous thing you could encounter wasn't a bear or a wolf or a big cat. It was another human." Ant's scales had gone pale. "And so you developed hundreds of fighting systems." "Thousands, actually. Every culture, every region, every time period. All focused on the same goal, how to defeat another human." James looked around at the shocked faces. "What I showed you today. This is what we teach children for fun. Recreation. Exercise. The real military systems, the ones designed for actual warfare, are much more efficient." "More efficient than this?" Grace's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes. And then there are special forces, soldiers who train their entire lives for combat. People who make me look like a beginner." James met their eyes. "I'm not special. I'm not a warrior. I'm just an average soldier with average training. By human standards, I'm completely ordinary." The training hall remained silent for a long moment. Then it erupted into chaos as every alien began talking at once. Medical staff rushed into the arena, checking on the volunteers who had faced James. Aliens with various scanning devices moved from one being to another, examining joints, checking for injuries, analyzing stress levels. None of the volunteers were seriously hurt, but every single one wore the same expression of profound shock. A medic approached Commander Vex, who waved him away irritably. "I'm fine. Just surprised." He turned to James, his compound eyes reflecting the human's image in 1,000 tiny fragments. "Sergeant Cooper, you claim this is what human children learn?" "Yes, sir. Most kids take some form of martial arts or self-defense classes. It's common. Parents enroll their children around age 6 or 7. By the time they're teenagers, most have at least basic knowledge." James gestured helplessly. "It's just normal for us." "Normal, Lieutenant, and repeated faintly. She was still sitting on the mat where James had thrown her earlier, her forearms wrapped around herself. You fight for recreation. Well, controlled fighting. Sports. We have competitions, tournaments, Olympics. People pay to watch fights. It's entertainment. James saw their expressions and realized how that must sound. Safe entertainment. There are rules, referees, medical staff. How many fighting systems does humanity have? Grace asked, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing in rapid, agitated sequences. James thought about it. Hundreds? Maybe thousands if you count regional variations. Judo, karate, boxing, wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, Krav Maga, Sambo, Kung Fu, and Kung Fu itself has dozens of styles. Then there's weapon-based systems, military combatives, sport fighting, self-defense programs. He trailed off as he noticed their horrified faces. What? Ben spoke slowly, his voice like grinding rocks. Each system is refined over how long? Depends on the system. Some are a few decades old. Others are thousands of years old. Boxing goes back to ancient Greece, at least 3,000 years. Wrestling is even older, probably as old as humanity itself. James shrugged. We've been fighting each other our entire existence as a species. A Krell warrior in the observation platform stood up, his armor plates rattling. On my world, one becomes a warrior only after 20 cycles of intensive training. This is considered elite status, achieved by perhaps 1 in 10,000 individuals. Commander Vex turned to James. How long have you trained, Sergeant? I started martial arts when I was 6 years old. Joined the military at 18. I'm 32 now, so... James counted in his head. 26 years total, I guess. 26 years, and whispered, her scales shifting to a pale, shocked color. And you call yourself average? I am average. Most career soldiers have similar backgrounds. Many have more training than me. James looked around at their faces, finally understanding their shock. You have to understand, on Earth, if you don't learn to fight, you're at a disadvantage. Not just against criminals or enemies, but in sports, in social situations, in self-confidence. Fighting ability is valued in our culture. Grace floated closer, her patterns now pulsing in deep, concerned colors. Your pain tolerance, your healing speed, your endurance. These traits were discussed as anomalies in your initial medical evaluation. But they are not anomalies for humans, are they? No. They're normal. Humans are persistence hunters. We evolved to chase prey for hours or even days until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can run in heat that would kill most species. Our bodies are designed to take damage and keep going because we got injured a lot during our evolution. James paused. Pain tolerance is necessary when everything on your planet is trying to eat you, poison you, or crush you. Specialist Tom, the Vexarii who had laughed earlier, spoke up nervously. Sergeant Cooper, you mentioned military combatives. How do they differ from what you showed us? James hesitated. They're more direct. Less about sport or tradition, more about efficiency. Ending threats quickly with minimum movement. Show us, Commander Vex said quietly. Sir, I don't think. That is a request, not an order. Please. We need to understand. James pulled out his personal data pad and connected it to the hall's holographic display system. I have some videos from Earth. Training footage, competitions, demonstrations. The first video showed a mixed martial arts competition. 2 humans fought in a cage, their movements fast and brutal. Strikes, takedowns, submissions, all flowing together in combinations that made the aliens watching lean forward in their seats. The second video was a special forces demonstration. Soldiers moved through combat scenarios with terrifying efficiency. Every movement had purpose. No wasted energy. Opponents dropped in seconds. The third video showed Olympic combat sports, wrestling, judo, boxing, taekwondo. Humans competing at the highest levels, their bodies honed to peak performance, their techniques refined to perfection. The training hall was completely silent as the videos played. James watched the aliens watch his species fight, and he saw understanding dawn in their eyes, and fear. A Krell warrior, his voice shaking slightly, spoke into the silence. On my world, I am considered an elite fighter. I have trained for 30 cycles. I have won honors in combat. He paused. What I just witnessed, those humans in the videos, they would destroy me in seconds. How long did those humans train? Ben asked quietly. The MMA fighters? Usually 10 to 15 years of intensive training. The special forces? Similar plus military experience. The Olympic athletes? Most started as children and trained their whole lives. James looked around at them. And they're not superhuman. They're just dedicated. There are millions of people on Earth with similar abilities. Anne's voice was barely audible. Millions. Earth has about 8 billion people. If even 1% has serious combat training, that's... Grace did the calculation. 80 million trained fighters. The implications settled over the room like a heavy blanket. Commander Vex's mandibles clicked together slowly, a sign James had learned meant he was thinking hard. If this is basic, a young alien cadet in the observation platform asked, voice trembling, if you are average, what are your actual warriors like? James met the cadet's eyes. He thought about the special operations soldiers he had known. The career fighters. The people who made him look like a clumsy beginner. You don't want to meet them in combat. Trust me on that. Commander Vex straightened, his posture becoming formal. I must report this to Coalition Command immediately. This changes many things. He turned to James. In the meantime, Sergeant Cooper, would you be willing to design a training program? Voluntary for Coalition members who wish to learn these techniques. James blinked in surprise. You want me to teach this? If these are basic techniques, then we need to learn them. Our forces would benefit greatly from this knowledge. Vex looked around the hall. Who wishes to volunteer for human combat training? I volunteer, Anne said immediately, standing up on her 4 legs. And I, Ben rumbled, stepping forward despite still rubbing his sore knee. I as well, Grace added, her patterns pulsing with determination. One by one, hands, tentacles, appendages, and other limbs rose throughout the hall. Within minutes, 40 aliens had volunteered. Then 50. Then more. James looked around at all the eager faces and realized something important was happening here. These beings weren't afraid of humans anymore. They wanted to learn from them. They wanted to become stronger. All right, James said, a small smile crossing his face. Class starts tomorrow. And I'll warn you now, human training isn't gentle. We believe in learning through doing. You're going to get bruised, tired, and frustrated. We understand, Commander Vex said. And we accept. As the crowd dispersed, excited conversations filling the air, James stood alone in the center of the arena for a moment. He thought about Earth, about humanity's violent history, about all the wars and conflicts that had forged his species into what they were. Maybe, just maybe, all that violence could finally be used for something good. Teaching others to defend themselves. Building bridges between species. Creating understanding through shared struggle. It was a strange thought, but James found himself smiling. Tomorrow would be interesting. Coalition Command met in emergency session 3 hours after James's demonstration. The meeting took place in a secure chamber deep within Kepler Station, where senior officers from a dozen species gathered around a circular table. The holographic recording of James's demonstration played on a loop above them, showing the human disabling trained warriors with disturbing ease. Admiral Korth, a massive aquatic being in a pressurized tank, spoke first. His translated voice was grave. The human disabled 12 trained coalition warriors using what he described as juvenile techniques. Techniques taught to children for recreation. We classified Earth as a potential threat, another officer argued, his translator rendering his clicking sounds into words. Perhaps we were correct. Perhaps humans are too dangerous for integration into the coalition. Commander Vex leaned forward, his blade arms resting on the table. Or perhaps they are exactly the allies we need. Consider what we witnessed. Humans do not fight with just strength or speed. They fight with intelligence. They adapt. They predict. Every technique Sergeant Cooper demonstrated was about using an opponent's advantages against them. That makes them even more dangerous, the clicking officer insisted. Dangerous to enemies, yes, but invaluable to allies. Vex pulled up tactical data on the holographic display. I have reviewed Earth's military history. Humans have fought thousands of wars against themselves. They have developed strategy, tactics, logistics, combined arms doctrine, all while fighting opponents with equal intelligence. Most species develop warfare against predators or over resources. Humans developed warfare as an art form against each other. The chamber fell silent as the officers absorbed this information. Admiral Korth's voice rumbled through his tank speakers. What do you propose, Commander? Limited integration with careful monitoring. Promote Sergeant Cooper to cross-species combat liaison. Allow him to train volunteers. We observe, we learn, and we assess whether humanity can be trusted as partners. Vex's compound eyes reflected the holographic images. Imagine our forces with that training. Coalition soldiers who can think like humans, who can adapt like humans, who can fight like humans. The debate continued for hours. Arguments flew back and forth about risk versus benefit, danger versus opportunity. Finally, a vote was called. The decision was narrow but clear. Humanity would be given a chance. James received his promotion notice the next morning. He stood in his quarters, reading the message 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. Cross-species combat liaison. It was a position that had never existed before, created specifically for him. His first class began that afternoon. 40 aliens gathered in the training hall, representing 15 different species. They looked at James with a mixture of respect, fear, and curiosity. He saw Ben and Grace in the front row, along with Commander Vex himself. "All right, everyone," James began, feeling oddly nervous. "Welcome to basic human combat training. First thing you need to understand, this will be hard. You will get bruised. You will get tired. You will want to quit. That's normal. Humans believe you learn by doing, by failing, by getting back up and trying again." He paused, looking at each alien face. "Second thing, these techniques were developed by humans for fighting humans. You're not human. Your bodies are different, your advantages are different, your weaknesses are different. So we're going to adapt these techniques for you. Take what works, modify what doesn't, create something new together." The first lesson was about falling. James taught them how to roll, how to absorb impact, how to protect vulnerable areas when hitting the ground. It seems simple, but it was fundamental. Half the class couldn't do it properly at first. Ben kept landing too hard, his massive weight working against him, and got tangled in her own forearms. Grace struggled with the concept of falling when she normally floated. But they kept trying. And slowly they improved. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The training program expanded. More aliens volunteered. James recruited human combat instructors from Earth to help teach. The program diversified into different specialties: striking for those with appropriate limbs, grappling for those with flexibility, tactical thinking for everyone. 6 months after that first demonstration, coalition forces with human combat training began excelling in combat simulations. Teams that had incorporated human techniques scored 30% higher than those without. Injury rates actually decreased. Human defensive training taught better body awareness and control. James stood in the main training hall one evening, watching a mixed-species class practice. Ben was teaching joint locks to a group of Krell warriors, his massive hands moving with surprising gentleness, and demonstrated grappling techniques to a group of Yentl, her forearms adapting human wrestling moves into something uniquely her own. Grace coordinated tactical exercises with a squad of Threll, combining their natural abilities with human strategic thinking. It was beautiful to watch, different species learning from each other, growing stronger together. A transport shuttle arrived that evening with new recruits. James met them in the hangar bay, remembering his own arrival 6 months ago. A young Vexarii cadet approached him nervously, antennae twitching with uncertainty. "Sergeant Cooper? I am Cadet Henry. I have heard many stories about you." The young alien paused. "Is it true that what you teach is considered basic by human standards?" James smiled. "What I teach here? Yeah, it's pretty basic back on Earth." Then, Henry's mandibles worked nervously. "What are your actual warriors like? The elite soldiers?" James thought about the special forces operators he had known. People who could move through darkness like ghosts, who could make impossible shots, who could survive situations that would kill anyone else. People who had spent their entire adult lives perfecting the art of combat. "Let's just say I'm glad they're on our side," James replied quietly. Henry looked past James into the training hall where dozens of aliens practiced human techniques with intense focus. "I wish to learn everything you can teach me. My clutchmates and I have discussed this. We want to become stronger, better warriors." "It won't be easy," James warned. "I understand. But if this training gives us even a fraction of human capabilities." Henry paused, his compound eyes meeting James's. "On behalf of my clutch, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. It is a gift of great value." James felt warmth spread through his chest. "You're welcome, Henry. Come on, let's get you started." As James led the new recruits into the training hall, Commander Vex approached with a data pad. "Official notification just came through. Earth's classification has been updated." "Oh." James took the pad and read the screen. His eyebrows rose in surprise. The entry for Earth no longer read, "Potential Threat." Instead it said, "Strategic Asset, handle with diplomatic care." "Handle with care?" James laughed. "Like we're dangerous cargo?" "You are dangerous," Vex replied, but there was warmth in his translated voice. "But you are our dangerous cargo now. Our allies. Our teachers. Our friends." He gestured at the training hall where species from across the galaxy practiced together, learned together, grew stronger together. The galaxy is vast, Sergeant Cooper. There are threats out there that would terrify even a Gorvith, dangers we cannot yet imagine. But now, thanks to you, we have learned something valuable. What's that, sir? That when you need to survive the unsurvivable, you ask a Deathworlder for advice. Vex's mandibles clicked in what James had learned was amusement. And if you are very fortunate, that Deathworlder says yes. Across Kepler Station in the command center, a priority message arrived from the frontier. Another Deathworld species had applied for coalition membership. The review board read the application with new eyes. They were no longer afraid of what Deathworlders might bring. They were curious. Because if humans, average, basic, ordinary humans, could offer so much to the coalition, what other wonders might be waiting among the dangerous worlds? The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries. But for the first time in coalition history, they were ready to embrace those mysteries rather than fear them. In the training hall, James called his class to attention. New students and experienced ones alike stopped their practice and turned to face him. Aliens of every size, shape, and ability stood together, united by a common goal. "All right, everyone," James said, his voice carrying through the hall. "Let's begin." And they did. Together they began building something new, a coalition not just of different species but of different ideas, different approaches, different strengths. They learned that different did not mean incompatible. That deadly did not mean evil. That danger could be channeled into protection. The human had come to Kepler Station as an outsider, a curiosity from a deadly world. He left as a teacher, a friend, and a bridge between worlds. And somewhere out in the vast galaxy, other Deathworlders watched and waited, wondering if they too might find acceptance among the stars. The age of Deathworlder integration had begun.